Good afternoon, my name is Matt Lamson. I am the sales engineer for thinQ, and today we're going to be looking at the REST API integration that we have with Twilio. Our REST API solution is based on a simple HTTP methods that make it incredibly easy to write applications using any HTTP client in any programming language of your choosing. Or you could even make the calls directly from your browser. The simple post calls are used to access thinQ's API to route the calls using our LCR solution, our least cost routing solution, as well as having the calls then routed to Twilio so that you can utilize all of the call management or call manipulation items that you would still like to have access to, such things as call recording, transfer, audio files, speak sentences, etc. This particular webinar is going to be focused on Twilio's connection, our connection to Twilio, but it's worth mentioning that this same API call could be used through Plivo as well, although it does just require a few simple parameter changes. The API URL that you'll be calling is going to be rest.thinq.com/vendor/calls/outbound. For those who are using thinQ's API solution in your environment today, you will notice that this URL is going to be different from our normal API offering, which is api.thinq.com. In terms of the parameters required for the API call to be successful, you'll need to establish the vendor, in this case Twilio, but this is where you could put in Plivo instead. You will also need to include the URL resource, which is the callback URL that will be used by Twilio. This could point to the TWIML file that contains further instructions for Twilio on how to handle the call. The TWIML is the Twilio markup language. You also need the to and from number, the from number being your Twilio number, and then of course your Twilio ID and token. This particular ID and token will be gathered from your Twilio environment. This Twilio ID and token are only required if you have set the vendor to Twilio. Again, if you're using Plivo, you would need to use the Plivo ID and token instead. So now that you've submitted your API request, you'll receive one of the following API responses. If successful, you should receive a 200 or 201 created response with a session ID. This particular session ID will be the one that the vendor had returned for that particular call. If your call was not successful, you'll receive one of the other API responses that are mentioned below.